Thank you for coming to MTG Anonymous, your daily source for random free-to-play decks on MTG Arena. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe whenever you get the chance. Also, feel free to watch any other content that I've produced. I'll see you in the video. Alrighty, welcome to MTG Anonymous. So today we are going to be going over the deck list for Wort, the Raidmother in 3DH. So if you look at the cost of this deck on MTG Goldfish compared to Scryfall says this deck is $296, and then MTG Goldfish says it's $157. So I'll just go along with it as if it was the $296, but know that you got a lot of room to go with this deck. So what do we want to do? We're going to use Wort the Raidmother to copy as many of our instants and sorceries as possible, get as much land as possible, and then use that land to abuse different things that we have in the deck. So first off, we will go over the commander, and then we will start going through the list as they come. First off, we have Wort the Raidmother for 4, and then Gruul hybrid mana twice. You get a 3/3 Goblin Shaman. When Wort the Raidmother enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red and green Goblin Warrior creature tokens. Each red or green instant or sorcery you cast has Conspire. And then Conspire says, as you cast this spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control that share color with it. When you do, copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this to have ramp spells like Nissa's Renewal, Frenzied Till, not Frenzied Tilling, Second Harvest, stuff like that. So we're going to use these cards that say search for something, put it on the battlefield, and then we'll use Wort to cause it to do it again. So Circuitous Route would be, instead of searching for 2 land or gate cards, would be searching for 4 for that same mana. We would just be tapping 2 Goblin Warrior tokens. So, and then all of the creatures in this deck obviously have the same colors as Wort, so we would be able to use them as well to tap. So you just have to make sure that you watch what you're doing in case of having like Scoop Mob or Jade Mage. If you have those, you cannot tap them for red cards with only red, like Dragon Fodder or Heat Shimmer, like that. So let's get into this list. Scoop Mob, for 1 green, you get a 1/1 insect at the beginning of your upkeep. If you control 5 or more lands, put 4 +1/+1 counters on Scoop Mob. That is almost always going to happen. We are almost always going to be able to have 5 lands, especially since Wort is 6 mana. We can kind of bite the bullet and use spells as we need to get to this 5 or the 6 lands that we need. So that's basically what we're going to do with this. Jade Mage for 1 and a green. You get a 2/1 Human Shaman for 2 and a green. Put a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token onto the battlefield. So in case someone kills Wort's tokens to keep her from being able to use her ability, have Jade Mage make Sapperling tokens that can copy our green spells, and then boom, now we're able to do it again anyway. Keeper of the Beast for a green and a green. Pay green and tap, put a beast token into play. Treat this token as a 2/2 green creature. Play this ability only if target opponent controls more creatures than you. So more than likely, our opponents are going to have more creatures than us, and so we're going to be able to use this every turn, and then now we have an additional creature that Wort would be able to use to tap and then Conspire. Emrakul's Evangel for 2 and a green. You get a 3/2 Human Horror. Tap, sacrifice it and any number of non-Eldrazi creatures. Put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi Horror creature token on the battlefield for each creature sacrificed this way. So most of our creatures have ways to make other creatures. So we'll have this out. We'll make as many tokens as possible, and then we'll sacrifice those tokens and then make 3/2 horrors. So 3/2 is definitely bigger than a 1/1 or a 2/2. So that'll make this big, and then once we're able to, we can Alpha Strike, kill our opponents. Sasya Arachi's Ascendant. So this is 2-sided. Reveal your hand if you have 7 or more lands in your hand. Flip it. And then when you flip it, whenever a land you control is tapped for mana, add 1 mana of that type for each other land you control with the same name. If we do this somehow, which we got ways to get lands in our hand, so I'm not necessarily worried about that. But if we're able to flip it, can make as much mana as we want, and then we can just go off. So there's a lot. And then since we only have basic forests and basic mountains, that means at most each land would tap for 18 mana each. So it's pretty broken. I've only flipped it 2 or 3 times during testing, so it's unlikely it'll happen, but if it does, then it's pretty awesome. Spawn Wraith for 2 and a green. Trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a token that's a copy of it. So this is actually only going to work if we have Beastmaster's Ascension out. So as we deal combat damage, we make a token, and then those 2 tokens also have this ability. That token has this ability. So when you swing, then boom, now 2 of them come out, and then so on and so forth, and you just keep going. And then if you have something like Peril of Lives, then that would make more tokens, and so you just go crazy with the amount of tokens that you can have. Beetleback Chief for 2 red and a red. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield. So 4 for 4 is pretty good. We got red colored creatures that we can tap, so now we can cast more than 1 spell a turn, since Wort would only allow us to do 1 at a time. Now if we have more things, then we can do more than that, obviously. I can't say that word, but the Half-Heart Goblin Tactician for 3 and a red. Whenever another goblin you control becomes blocked, sacrifice it. If you do, it deals 4 damage to each creature blocking it. So this is going to help us get our swings in. And then sacrifice 2 mountains, put 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens into play. So again, along with Beastmaster's Ascension, we can just basically kill all of our opponent's creatures. When we swing, instead of them being 1/1s, then they would do 4 damage. So it's really good. We would never use Ib Half-Heart to swing, so that's a thing. Crinkle Mob Boss 2, a red and a red. The Mob Boss is a 3/3 Goblin Warrior. Tap, put X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens on the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins you control. So Wort makes goblins and is a goblin. Beetleback Chief is a goblin that makes goblins. Half-Heart can make goblins by sacrificing mountains. So we can have a whole bunch of creatures or goblins out that can tap and then make lots. I can't say that word either, but the Hate Seed for 2 a red and a green. You get a legendary Hydra. It comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other red creature you control and each other green creature you control. So the rules should state that red, since it's separated by an and, you should be able to count red and green creatures the same. Or maybe not. I'll have to look at that ruling and then I'll come back at the end. But then for 1, remove a +1/+1 counter on it. From it, choose 1. Either deal 1 damage to target creature or put a +1/1 green sapling creature token into play. Again, Peril of Lives will allow us to make 2 of those instead. So it's pretty unlikely that we would do something like that, but in case we want to, then we can. So we can get a whole bunch of goblins out, and then release the Hate Seed, and boom, it's huge. Zyndakar's Incarnate, 2 a green and a red. It's an elemental with star 4. Its power is equal to the number of lands you control. Again, we can control up to 36, so the biggest give you a 36, but that's really unlikely. Cage Breakers for 4 and a green. Whenever it attacks, put a 2/2 green wolf creature token on the battlefield. Tapped and attacking for each creature in your graveyard. So yes, we don't have many creatures, but if they die, then we get a 2/2 for each one, so it's worth it. Zerta Ancient for 3 a red and a green. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana to his or her mana pool of any type that land produced. So yes, that helps our opponents, and so they're less likely to kill this, but we can take advantage of so much mana that our opponent won't be able to actually keep up with us, depending on how well we go. Robo Hulk for 4 a red and a green. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control, and then for 1 a red and a green, discard Robo Hulk. Target attacking creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of lands you control. Now, if I'm correct, I don't think So Spine Wraith has trample. So what we would do is we would discard Robo Hulk and give that to Spine Wraith, and then boom, it just deals a whole bunch of damage really fast. So that's just an extra finisher. And then again, most of our spells are going to cause us to grab lands, so this helps us out a lot more. Verdant Force for 5, a green, and a green. You get 7/7 elemental at the beginning of each upkeep. Put a +1/1 green sapling creature token into play. So this says each upkeep, so our opponent's upkeeps also help us out. So every single turn we get a 1/1, and then now that's even more spells that we can conspire. So the whole point of all these creatures, basically, except for Scoop Mob. Scoop Mob's just here, just to be here. But each one of these creatures either gives us a way to A, take advantage of the numbers of lands we're going to control, because we will have a lot, and then, or B, make creature tokens that we can use and tap to conspire, and then get even more lands out. Animus Awakening for X, any green. Reveal the top X cards of your library. Put all land cards from among them onto the battlefield tab. The rest on the bottom of your library in order. So we have the ability to maybe grab the rest of our lands out of our deck, especially if you conspire. So if you pay 18 somehow for X, and then you conspire, now you have 36. You're looking at the top 36 cards of your library, and putting all those lands onto the battlefield tapped. So then your next turn, you untap, you can do whatever you want. And then if you have 2 or more instances or sorceries in your graveyard, which you probably will, then you untap those lands, and then you can go off that turn instead. Attune with Aether for 1 green. Search your library for basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. So we conspire this, now we have 2 lands in our hand, and then that gets us even closer to flipping Saya. So, enter the Unknown for 1 green. Target creature you control explores, and then you may play an additional land this turn. Again, this gives us another way to draw cards. So, Explorer says, reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature, then put the card back or put it into your graveyard, and then you may play an additional land this turn. So, hopefully, we get 2 lands. If we don't, oh well, we get a +1/+1 counter on one of our creatures, preferably the Spawn Wraith at this point. And then, boom, play an additional land. So, we'd be able to play 2 additional lands, and then they don't come in tap since they're basics, so that helps us out too. Dragon Fodder for 1 and a red. Create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. So, basically, Conspire, now they're 4, so 4 for 2 is better than 2 for 2. You know, and that's just how I have that listed. Ground Assault for red and a green. Ground Assault deals damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. So if we have a whole bunch of lands, we conspire. Now we can kill 2 creatures, or we can kill 1 giant creature. So, Rampant Growth for 1 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card. Put on the battlefield tab. Shuffle your library. So again, do this twice. Boom, 2 lands for 2 mana. Perfect. Seek the Wilds, 1 and a green. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So now we get to look at the top 8 cards. Now, granted, you can only pull 4 and then put on the bottom and then look at 4. So you can whiff with this, but more than likely we're not going to, since lands and creatures take up over over half the deck, 51 cards. 51 cards exactly. So, Thunderherd Migration for 1 and a green. As an additional cost, reveal a dinosaur or pay 1. So, search your library for basic land card, put on the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library again. Wort will conspire. So then we could put a 2 for the 3. So 2 for 3 is not bad. Beneath the Sands, 2 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. And then also we can cycle it. So pay 2, discard this card, draw a card. We're probably not going to do that. We want to get 2 basic lands out with Wort, so why not? Glitleaf Ambush for 2 and a green. Instant elf tribal. Put 2 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens into play. Clash with an opponent. If you win, those creatures gain death touch until end of turn. So since this is an instant, we conspire. Now, boom, we have 4. We are more than likely going to win a clash depending on which opponent we pick. And then we can also pick a different opponent. So now We'll have 2 Death Touchers. We can kill a creature that's swinging at us. Grow from the Ashes for 2 and a green. And then also you can pay the kicker for 2. Search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. If this spell was kicked, instead search your library for 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield. So for 5 mana and Conspire, we can search for 4 basic lands, or for just the 3, we can search for 2. So, and then also they're not tapped, so that also helps us out. So we'd be able to put 4 basic lands on the battlefield for 5. So basically we only spent 1. So this is slowly rolling out of control. Now, granted, we might run out of basics depending on how fast we do this, seeing as creatures are going to be played intermittently with these. And then also, Wort says that you just tap to untap. So if you have, say, Emrakul's Evangel that came in that turn, you can still tap it, because it is not tapping itself, it's Wort tapping it instead. Growth Spasm for 2 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library, and then put a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token on the battlefield with sacrifice this creature, add 1 to your mana pool. Again, conspiring, so now 2 basic lands tapped and 2 Eldrazi spawns with 2 land that you can have 2 mana for. So basically, again, you're getting 4, but 2 of it's tapped, so it doesn't help you out in the long run, but it is still really good. Harvest Season for 2 and a green. Search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control, and put those onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So, since we're using Conspire to tap our creatures, that instantly makes 2. So, if we Conspire and we only had 2 creatures tapped, and then now that's 4. So 4 basic lands we go search for, and that's not including if we have Krinko out, which means we could tap again. So that's 5 creatures that we could possibly have. That's not including if we swung at an opponent that has an empty board. So we're just slowly getting this going, and then boom, we'll have a whole bunch of lands out. Heat Shimmer for 2 and a red. Put a token into play that's a copy of target creature. It has haste, and at the end of turn, remove this permanent from the game. So what we're doing with this, we're going to make a copy of Wort, and we're going to Conspire. So now we have 2 copies of Wort, but they each bring 2 green-red Goblin tokens. So now we have 4 Goblin tokens, not including the ones we had from our original Wort, so it would be 6 Goblin tokens, and now 3 spells we can Conspire each turn, and it doesn't matter which one, because we have both colors. And then we will let those 2 Worts die because we don't need them, and then at the end of the turn we're going to move them anyway. Whirling Outburst for 1 a red and a red. Put 3 1/1 red Goblin creature tokens on the battlefield. Again, Conspire, now we're 6, so 6 for 3 mana is good. Journey of Discovery, 2 and a green. Choose 1. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal them. Put them into your hand, or you may play them for 2. Play up to 2 additional lands this turn. So now if you pay 6, then you can do both. So we Conspire, we do both. Now we have 4 that are untapped. Boom. Well, 4 that we play, obviously, and then they come untapped because of it. Now, depending on how many Worts creatures we have, now we're just going to keep going with this. So, Map the Waste for 2 and a green. Search your library for basic land card, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library, bolster 1, choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, the way this is going to go, again, hopefully Wort's out, so boom, we get 2, and then we get 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and then we'll choose one of the creatures that's not tapped, obviously. Well, hopefully. Natural Connection for 2 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield tap, shuffle your library again, Conspire, so we're getting 2 for 3. So we're just going to keep this value train going. Sylvan Awakening for 2 and a green. Until your next turn, all lands you control become 2/2 elemental creatures with reach, indestructible, and haste. They're still lands. So what we're going to do, we're not going to Conspire this one, obviously, but we're just going to have all these lands that we went and got that are all indestructible and have reach, and we're going to swing with them. And so what ends up happening is, boom, now we have a lot of damage that we're doing. Excuse me. So that is basically how that's going to go. Untamed Wilds for 2 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, put that into play. Shuffle your library. So while we're doing this, we're going to make sure that we're grabbing a different color each time, because we don't want to just have all forests or all mountains. We want a extreme mixture of both, especially because of our enchantments. Well, there's not much red in this deck, but red is important to have out, so circuitous routes for 3 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and or gate cards. Put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So for 4, you have 4, because we'll conspire this one, obviously, and boom, we're good. Exploding Borders for 2, a red and a green. Domain, search your library for a basic land card. Put that card into play tapped, then shuffle your library. Exploding Borders deals X damage to target player, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. So we get to search for 2, because we're going to conspire this, obviously. And then we get to deal 2 damage twice. So 4 damage to target player. 4 damage for 4 ain't bad, and then 2 lands for 4 isn't bad. So Hunting Wilds for 3 and a green, and then a kicker of 3 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 forest cards and put them into the play tapped. Then shuffle your library if the kicker cost was paid. Untap all forests put into play this way. They become 3/3 green creatures with haste and are still lands. So we like this because it's not as good, because if you pay the kicker, now you paid 8 for 4 lands, but you'd be paying 8 for 12 power, since all of them are 3/3 green creatures. So I mean, that it's good, but it's bad because that's a lot of mana you're using up. But they're green creatures also, so now what ends up happening is if you have mana that's not that mana, you can tap that mana, cast another spell, and then copy it using those as the creatures instead. Peregrination, I hope that's how you say that, for 3 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic cards, reveal those cards, put 1 onto the battlefield, tap the other into your hand. Shuffle your library, then scry 1, so we're going to do this twice. So the first scry doesn't matter, the second scry will, the next time you do it, and then you have 2 lands in your hand and 2 extra ones on the battlefield. Now, what ends up happening again, Sacia is, we're going to want to flip so that way we can tap a whole bunch of mana, do a whole bunch of stuff every turn. So that's why we like this card here. Second Harvest for 2 green and a green. For each token you control, put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of that permanent. So now we're probably going to have a whole bunch of tokens, hopefully, unless we get board wiped a whole bunch of times, which it doesn't matter. It happens. So we're going to play it. We're going to keep doing this over and over and over again. Not over and over again, but we're going to do this twice. So Wort's tokens, we have 4 of them instead of 2 now. Now, well, we would... let me get this... Hold on. So first we copy them once. So now we went from 2 to 4. So now we have 4 red and green goblin tokens. And then we're going to copy them again. So now 4, we have 8. So we'll have 8 from just Worts, and it's not including all the other ones like the Spawn Wraiths, creatures that it made, or the Battle Chiefs, or Krinkos. So this is helping us make a whole bunch of tokens really fast. Frenzied Tilling for 3, a red and a green. Destroy target land. Search your library for a basic land card. Put that on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Destroying 2 lands for 5. But we get an extra land because of it, so that's why it's in here. Nissa's Renewal for 5 and a green. Search your library for up to 3 basic land cards. Put them on the battlefield tapped. Shuffle your library. Gain 7 life. So with Conspire for 6, we have 6 basic lands now, and we gain 14 life. So we're just going to keep stacking on this value as we go. Now we're not dealing damage to our opponents yet, but we can show you how that goes in the enchantment section. Altar of the Brood, one of my favorite cards. It's going to be in every single deck I brew most of the time. For 1 mana, whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Now this is out with Wort. When she comes down, boom, each opponent mills 3. Now Krinko comes out and taps. If Wort and her 3 tokens are out, you've made 4 more. Boom, now mill 4. And so it's just going to keep stacking and stacking and stacking, and our opponent won't really be able to do anything unless they destroy Altar of the Brood, which most of the time they do. Mycosynth Wellspring for 2. When it enters the battlefield or is put into graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. So grab us a land card if we don't have one, or we're trying to get 7 in our hand, so we have one. And then if somehow our opponents destroy all artifacts, then we get another one. So, Throne of the God Pharaoh for 2. Beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures you control, tapped creatures you control. Every turn, we're going to have at least 2 tapped creatures, depending on how well we've drawn at this time. So, now what this will do is, boom, now we lost my train of thought. So now we deal 2 damage to each of our opponents each turn, and so this makes the game go quick. Or at least it helps us out, make it go quick. Helm of the Host for 4. At the beginning of your combat, on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except it isn't legendary. If it was, that token gains haste. So we're going to use that on Wort, or we're going to use this on Krinko. Making copies of Wort means more chances to Conspire. Now, I don't know. I'll have to, again, rules, look up if Conspire works twice. So if I have 2 Worts, can I Conspire twice on the same? That would be kind of silly, but I'm here for it if it works. For 4, whenever a land enters the battlefield, pay 2. If you do, draw a card. We're gonna be able to pay 2 pretty much every time, since we're gonna be putting a whole bunch of lands into the battlefield. So this helps us draw cards for doing what we're gonna do anyway, putting lands on the battlefield, since almost every single spell puts a land on the battlefield. Minion Reflector for 5. When a non-token creature comes into play under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, put a token that's a copy of it. That token has haste, and at the end of the turn, sacrifice this permanent. So why is this here? We're going to play Wort. We're going to make a copy of Wort. And then now we have 4 Wort tokens instead of 2. Or also we can make a copy of Scoot Mob. We can make more copies of Spawn Rice as we go. We can make a copy of Altish, the Hate Seed. We can just make copies of our creatures, and then since it comes into play, we don't actually have to cast those. So this also counts for, well, not our tokens, but for all of these can make copies. So Verdant Force is definitely one we would want to make copies of, obviously. Beastmaster's Ascension for 2 and a green. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster's Ascension. As long as it has 7 or more counters, creatures you control get +5/+5. So why do I like this? Because Sylvan Awakening makes all of your lands 2/2s and indestructible. So hopefully we have enough lands that we can swing out, kill our opponent. Since we have almost every spell in our deck is a way to draw a card, a creature, we want those 2 to be out together. So now since they have haste, we swing, they all get +5/+5, so now they're 7/7s, and boom, we do a whole bunch of damage. Goblin Assault for 2 and a red. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 red goblin creature token with haste in the play. Goblin creatures attack each turn if able. So how we get around this is we're going to tap them with a Wort, hopefully. Now, I need to put other ways to tap creatures in this deck, which would be great, but I don't have that right now, so this is how the deck is going. Goblin Slide for 2 and a red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay 1. If you do, put a red goblin creature on the battlefield with haste. 27 different spells. So, and that's just spells. We get to pay 1, and then boom, now we have a 1/1 red goblin token. So if we have another spell in our hand we're able to cast, we have another creature that we can conspire with. So, Hammer of Perforos for 1 a red and a red. Creatures you control have haste for 2 and a red. Sacrifice a land, put a 3/3 colorless golem enchantment artifact creature on the battlefield. This is here for haste. We want Wort to come out, or, well, not necessarily Wort, but Krinko to come out, have haste, boom, tap it, and then we get to do stuff. Life Gift for 2 and a green. Whenever a land comes in the battlefield, into play, you may gain a life. We're going to gain that life, and we need to, because people are going to start swinging at us once they see how much land we get. Land destruction would hurt us, but Ulvenwald Mysteries for 2 and a green. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, investigate. And then whenever you sack a clue, put a 1/1 white human soldier creature token on the battlefield. So they're going to do a whole bunch of killing of Wort, but we're going to be able to cast it pretty much every single time. So as long as we get one of these, as long as when Wort came out, then we're able to cast Beneath the Sands that same turn and Conspire. So now we have 2 extra lands. The next time we can play Wort again. And then we can keep doing this over and over again, and then that helps us out. From Beyond for 3 and a green. Devoid, this card has no color. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token onto the battlefield with sacrifice this creature, add 1 to your mana pool, and then for 1 and a green, sacrifice it, search for an Eldrazi card. We don't have any Eldrazi cards, but these 1/1s will add 1 mana to our library every time, or our mana pool every time. So basically, this is 1 less land we have to tap. So when we get to Sylvan Awakening, now we only had to pay 1 green instead of having to pay, I don't know, with 3 lands instead. And so that helps us out. Life and Limb for 300 green. All forest and all saplings are 1/1 green sapling creatures and forest lands in addition to their cost. So now, Verdant Forest and Life and Limb coincide, because now every time a sapling enters the battlefield, it's a forest, and so it can tap for green. So it's a combo basically. And then because of this, now our forest can also tap for Conspire, and so that helps us out. Parallel Lives for 300 green. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many instead. So Krinko, Ib, Half Heart, Beetleback Chief, Spawn Wraith, Wort. Basically every creature in this deck can, well, Zendikar and Zur, I think, and Robo Hulk. So the rest of them make tokens somehow, and then boom, now we have 2 tokens. So, or twice as many tokens. So Krinko and Altar of the Brood with this do a lot of damage. Rowan for 2 green and a green. Reveal the first card you draw each turn. Whenever you reveal a basic land card this way, draw another card. So we drew a card, we found a forest, maybe, then we get to draw another card. So that helps us out. Seed the Land for 2 green and a green. Whenever a land comes into play, its controller puts a 1/1 green snake creature into play. Again, helps our opponents, but we put a whole bunch of lands in play every single turn. So we're going to always have a whole bunch of green snakes, and then Beastmaster's Ascension is going to make those snakes bigger when we go to swing. Honden of Life's Web for 4 and a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token on the battlefield for each shrine you control. We only have the 1, so yeah, it's not as good. If we had the red shrine, we deal damage, but it's not worth it in this deck, seeing as we just want to make tokens. They're colorless spirit tokens, so that's not as good, but Parallel Lives will make 2 of them at each turn instead. So, Zendikar Royal for 3 green and a green. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 2/2 green elemental creature token onto the battlefield. Again, we're going to be getting lots of lands each turn, so lots of green elemental. Zendikar's Resurgence for 5 green and green. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana. Add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. So, and then whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. So we have 16 instances to draw a card. So, and then Wort, when it dies, we get to draw another card. So we would just keep doing that over and over again. Orochi, Egg Watcher, for 2 and a green. Put a 1/1 green snake creature token into play. If you control 10 or more creatures, flip it. So probably we're going to have that. And then the flip side says sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. And so what we'll do is, once we've made all of our creatures into lands, or all of our lands into creatures, we will tap them, sacrifice them, and then give that +3 to the Spine Wraith since it has trample. Boom! Blow our opponent out. At least one opponent out. We're not going to do all of them, just enough to kill our opponent. Get a copy of Spine Wraith, and then now we can do that 2 times, kill our other 2 opponents. And then since hopefully we have like From Beyond going, then we can sacrifice those creatures instead. We have lots of ways to make creatures, and most of them will be 1/1, so that makes this life easier. And then we have 36 lands, 18 forests, and 18 mountains. We could also reduce the number of mountains since there's nowhere near as many we need, but just in case, because we need about the same amount, because we really need Krinko, so we want more than likely to draw as much. So I'm going to look up the 3DH rules and see if I'm messing stuff up. I'm going to do the 3DH rules and see, what am I doing? There you go, let's just hide that. But like I said, I'm going to look up the 3DH rules and see if how they go about doing the prices, because if this is the case, then I got a lot of money that I can, well, 1.43, but that's quite a bit of money to be replacing stuff. So Let's see. I think that's it. Look in the comments for upgrades, and then I'll also have that rule for Conspire, and then I don't remember the other thing. So if you, while I'm editing, then I'll be making the comments. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you. Later.